Okay, hi class. This week I'm sitting at Mira Mesa High School parking lot. It's very scenic. There's a road and there's a school. Okay, that's all I get. Um, with us is Rebecca Scovie, aka Beck, who is a former student, one of the former original founders of our psychology club, and I think you were the ones that started Psi Beta.
I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and so the legacy at Cuyamaca College, and so okay, so what's your backstory? Where'd you come from? What was your plan when you started community college?
Perfect. So I graduated high school at Valhalla, just a couple miles away, 2016. I started at Cuyamaca right then, 2016 as well. I had no idea what I was going to do. Originally, I thought to go into nursing and quickly realized I did not want to do that. I took my first, or I guess kind of second psych course. I took one at Valhalla with you
Yep.
and realized I loved it. And then immediately jumped into that as my major, along with two of my friends from Valhalla as well. And all three of us went all through your courses through Cuyamaca and actually transferred to state midway through. For myself, it was a little bit bumpy. Ended up realizing after being admitted to state that some of my requirements weren't met, had to take 3 summer classes, accelerated, and got those credits met, went straight to state. But
And you were very stressed.
I
So
was very stressed.
they were very panicked for a period of time, and it was a you could have given up, but
For sure. Yeah. There definitely was a period of time when I had gotten the email from state after I'd already been admitted that basically said, we've re-reviewed your application and we actually can't take you in because these certain requirements aren't met. And I remember back at that time, maybe my last semester before transferring, I had gone to the guidance counselors. One particular counselor told me, all my requirements were met. Just you take like a fluff class to fill, the credits. And so when I'd gotten that email, I was so stressed. I hung out around the guidance counselor's office and talked to, I think, probably 3 different guidance counselors. I I called state because at first I thought it was, payments didn't go through or something. I was just freaking out. But after sitting down and talking with one of the guidance counselors at Cuyamaca, they made a plan for me. I had her write in very strongly worded email to state, and although it definitely felt like the end of the world, I took those 3 summer classes. I remember sitting down, and they're all like 8-week classes, 6, 8 weeks, something like that. And they say it's supposed to be like 9 hours each week, and I was sitting down, like head down in these classes, panicked. But yeah, made it through. Got into state, and again, the 3 of us, my 2 friends, we all started there. We really didn't know what we were going to do at all. I think the 3 of us got into our special interests in a different way. I ended up minoring in counseling and social change, and that completely changed my perspective of what I had wanted to do. And I felt like my passion really was being in that clinical setting. And I thought maybe kind of go into either MFT or LPCC. And I just really put my head down to work through those classes. I graduated and was in the actual club as well for counseling and social change minor. My friend Rima in found her interest in forensic psychology at state as well, and she is in her PsyD program for forensic psychology.
awesome.
But super cool. But
Yeah.
jumping back, right at the end of my senior year was 2020 when COVID
Whee!
hit 4 years ago. So it was really a huge stopping point for me. We all went to online classes. That first semester was, or I guess my last semester was super rough. Um, I didn't get a chance to apply to any grad schools. I was just working at Target at that time, mask, gloves, came home, put all my clothes in the wash. Like everything was just crazy at that time. So I really felt like I had been stuck at Target and kind of finished my degree and wasn't really going to go anywhere because the world was shut down. But come the next year, December 2020 and January 21, I started applying to grad schools. Decided I would rather go to the MFT kind of course. They had better licensure, and when you are an MFT versus an LPCC, you can see more clients and kind of give more assessments, work more
So,
closely with other people.
so we haven't talked to an LPCC yet. That's a licensed
Sure.
professional clinical counselor, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so the difference, so the MFT program through the Department of Counseling, please folks remember that Department of Counseling, not Department of Psychology for MFT. Yes, you are a psychologist, but you don't get your degree in psychology.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Um, if you go the psych route, and this is what we talked about last week, is they pepper you with science, 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 science. And that's why Rima's in happiness in Joyland, because she's the science, science, science kid. No offense, you're adults now, but who cares? You're still the kids. But you you drifted away from psych and into counseling because
Yeah. I it really specifically was that minor. We discussed um a lot of big social change issues and how to counsel people through them. You know, San Diego is such a big immigrant population, and growing up in East County, in the second largest immigrant population of Chaldean folks, it was really impactful to me personally. And just kind of going through, and here it was a really, really small minor. So there were maybe only 10 to 15 of us in each class.
well,
We
that's
had,
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool. I didn't originally think it was going to be as impactful as it was, but the discussions we had in those classes were so eye-opening to the things around me that one I had never considered. We talked about kind of all the isms, racism, sexism, ableism, just pretty much everything. And our teachers really dived into kind of what's going on around us and how we could help in our helping profession, or if that's what we wanted to go into.
Right.
And for myself as well, the reason originally why I kind of fell in love with psych, especially the counseling part, my dad passed away when I was a kid from cancer. And I ended up going to a free summer camp put on by different universities around the country, actually. Mine specifically that I went to was UCSD, but they did a free week-long summer camp for kids whose lives have been affected by cancer. I was really young when I started and went there about 10 years as a camper, but they do a thing on like the middle of the week, Wednesday. As a kid, I always called it the crying circle because I was a horrible
That's
little kid.
awesome.
When you would sit around and tell your story, and it's kids from, I don't know, like 6 to 16. And when I was younger, I didn't realize the impact and I wouldn't talk, just kind of let it, held the talking stick, passed it forward. But other people would talk about their experience and finding a family and kind of shared experiences, lived experiences with the people around them. And as I got older and then became a counselor in training for the camp for a couple of years, it really impacted me just seeing the way that a community can bring people together and can really make you one less lonely. It can bring your mental health up. It can help so many parts of, the moving world around you, that's where I felt that I belonged and I
Wow.
could do the most good there. So that was really what kind of pushed me forward into this kind of profession and schooling that I'm in right now.
So you're really feeling that your personal life really connected to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There
So that
are,
like, yeah, the mirror effect of like when you get and listen to everything, like this is all the stuff that I've heard and I've seen and now I get it. And it's yeah,
yeah, definitely.
that's cool.
Going through the classes that I'm in now, or have taken, there's little tidbits that we review of like how to counsel in this certain situation or learning, you know, we all talk about like family systems theory. We've talked about Erickson in my class just last week. We took about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and just kind of all these things that we've learned about in undergrad. And then you kind of really dive deep into them, how explaining or using this theory can just open a client's eyes and allow them to kind of really take in new coping skills, help them learn things about their own life. And it wasn't things that I ever realized that I kind of knew in the back of my head, but having them taught to me, like, wow, I think I did maybe realize this before. Like, I did have to build myself up in this way and make sure these needs are met before I can do this. And now I'm here and I'm striving to get to my self actualization. But, like, for just an example, but just kind of using those things that I've been taught and seeing them practical in my own life.
Yeah, it's funny because we started teaching introduction to cognitive psych now in the community college, and that course to me is the entire connections of everything, because it's like you do a deep dive into each of the little parts of intro, and or just all the cognitive section, and it's mind blowing on how you keep seeing everything everywhere.
Yeah.
But okay, so one of the things that you guys did that stepped out that I'm still encouraging the people who are watching this to go do is you guys went over to Sharp Mesa Vista, and can you describe that first day? Do you remember that? Because that was like, because Michaela was there and two other people were there with you, and they never came back. And you're the one who came back.
Yes. So originally, it was the girl I'd mentioned, my friend Rima, that decided to try and volunteer at Sharp Mesa Vista, which is the mental health inpatient outpatient right up the 163. And she said she really liked it. So I decided to go ahead and try and volunteer there as well. I thought it would look, really good on my resume, which it did. I'll tell you later. Um, but you start off as a guest ambassador, which is just sitting at the receptionist and helping people check in, paging the doctors, some of the nurses that their clients are here, getting intake forms set. And I remember walking in and I had no idea what I was doing. I was so scared. And they said, don't go into this ward. Do not open those doors. This is the inpatient. If they get out, you're going to have a problem. These people are fine, but watch out. And I was so freaked out. I was like, I can't do this. Some of these people might be too much for me to handle. Like
Put your
they said,
imposter hat on and
yeah, 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 exactly. I was like, I don't belong here. And then finally, the two people that actually worked at the front desk were super cool, taught me how to do, all the intake, helping clients with the intake forms, checking people in, talking to some of the doctors. And it helped me feel so much more comfortable after talking to Rima about her same situation. With that, it definitely was the imposter syndrome. Every single volunteer that started right there at that guest ambassador position felt that same thing. We had no idea what the hell we were doing, so freaked out. But you just sit there, sit in your discomfort, learn about the system, learn what you're doing, and eventually you're going to get more comfortable. But I ended up volunteering there for about 5 months before going to state, and the times just didn't work out with my schedule. I actually just matched with Sharp Mesa Vista for my practicum. So
what?
yes.
Okay, so when you match with your practicum, I'm gonna derail you a little bit here. Do you apply, and then probably the person reading the application goes, "Oh, I remember her." Did you think that person was available, or the fact that it just said volunteered?
You know what? So I don't think they remembered me because it wasn't like the head of volunteer work or anything. It was
Okay.
one of the women who actually is the clinical director of the program. But just generally, I think volunteering at Sharp was a huge marker for why they accepted me. We had Zoom interviews. I had like 7 of my classmates that also interviewed for Sharp.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was an interesting interview because I didn't want to, like beat them out or anything, but things happen.
Hey, all at the same time, like in a Zoom, one big Zoom
Yes.
room. You're all, oh, that's terrible.
Yep. Yep. And so there were 4 directors there for different programs that Sharp puts on. And they asked, like, why do you want to work at, why do you want to do your practicum at Sharp? And I was able to say, I volunteered at Sharp Mesa Vista. I was firsthand to the practices and just great care that Sharp gives to all of their clients, inpatient, outpatient alike. And it really set me apart from the rest of the candidates.
Absolutely. Insider knowledge. You
Yeah,
you you speak the words. You can
yeah,
tell them which form does what. I mean, that's 3 weeks worth of training they don't have to do.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So putting that forward, I think was really great for me. But yeah, so I just matched with them. Practicum, if you don't know what it is, if you're doing some sort of counseling, just like in the field type thing for your career, it is going to take clients as basically like an intern. So I'll be doing all group therapy actually at Sharp. Some of the other programs around San Diego are other private practices that you can have individual clients, you can have family, you can do school settings. So there's tons and tons of basically just internship sites that you're doing through your school. And I'm lucky enough to be at Sharp. So excited to start that. It'll be a year long starting in August. And
Oh
then
wow.
right after, right after I'll be graduating with my master's degree.
Oh wow. Okay, so now, oh, so you're almost done with the masters now. Yeah, that's right. Okay,
Yes.
that's why I wanted to talk to you guys in graduate school. So what's the hardest thing about graduate school when you started versus before? Like undergraduate, it's the same as a lower division, just bigger.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely. Um, So it'll be a funny thing to say, but man, switching to night classes was crazy. So having my classes are depending on the course load I'm taking, either 2 to 10 p.m. with like a little break in between, or 7:30 to 10 p.m. So making sure that I am reading all of my like assigned readings and really just making sure I get things done beforehand is so integral to be doing that. But just as like a general, what's different about grad school from undergrad, the precision that is expected from you is much higher than it was in undergrad. I think that it's not that there's like a lot of pressure really put on you, but they are seeing you as an adult and they are expecting you to, read your book, do the coursework, ask if you have questions, and like just move along the schedule.
if you don't ask questions, they assume you know it perfectly.
Yes, yes, exactly. I had to take a stats class for it feels like it's yep, it feels like it was the third time. Actually, I think it was the third time because I had to take it with you. I took it at state and then took it now. And
Did they do
they,
just to derail you again? Did the stats cover the basics, the same basics that we covered in just more detail, or did they do like
yes.
Bayesian logic, or did they do regressions, or is it just the same thing over and over?
Oh, so at state, it was so much less detailed than it had been with you.
Oh, really?
I don't think we used SPSS at all.
What?
It was super easy, but you know what? Granted, it was that semester where we transferred to online, so it was kind of a mess. But uh, in my class that I just recently had, absolutely, we were using SPSS all the time. We were doing our own studies because most people were in a practicum, so they had their own clients, so they had
Right.
their own samples. So we had to like fully devise our own like actual project
Oh,
and
cool.
run everything. And you know what? We have used stats so much in the rest of the classes that I've had, actually going through and like reading studies, pulling apart, why it has like everything it does, what's good about it. And then I'm also right now in the middle of taking a psychological assessments class and
Okay.
learning the assessments that I can both give and not give. Once I graduate with my degree, we're learning about, how significant they are compared to like other studies and other tests that are given. If it has, and I'm blanking on the words right now.
Content
Like,
validity, structural
yes,
validity.
yes, exactly. That's what it is.
I
If
taught
it
that
has like,
class. I know that
yeah,
stuff.
yes, yes. Like all the validity to it and the reliability going through.
Right.
So it is so transformative, really finally understanding it and doing the study
Wait a
myself.
minute.
And you,
This is
yes,
what they mean.
yes, exactly.
This is
And
we have to
realizing,
care. Yeah.
yes, yeah, realizing that some of the tests that I'm gonna hopefully use in the future have that strong significance and basically are close to, one out of, that -1 to
Right.
1 basis, and they're strong. And what that can indicate. For example, we were looking at, I can't remember what test it was, but usually given to couples, and this certain percentage on it will sort of indicate that most couples that are in that range are kind of headed for divorce. Some that are in the higher range have a stronger relationship and they're good communication, and how you can go ahead and use these clients' scores to help them in maybe like pre-marriage counseling or something like that.
Right.
So it really is kind of going forward easier to understand things once you get that whole concept.
So while you're in your MFT program, they're really nailing the marriage and family part on you. It's not like, okay, you're just going to go talk to this person about their feelings. They're like,
Yeah. So really we cover a whole host of topics because under the marriage and family umbrella, you can see pretty much anyone. You can see individuals. You can do family counseling. You can do couples counseling. You can do like specialized things if you want to do like sex counseling, or specifically for like ADHD or something. You can really just um, grab any.
talking to me. Yeah,
You can do anything you want there. So the coursework really is spread out to what you can deliver as a clinician. But yes, we do have a good couple of classes on couples, on family systems, on child and adolescence, and taking over some of those theories and kind of theological orientations really does span across the types of clients you're going to work with.
got it.
For myself, I really like emotionally focused therapy, and that goes a long way with pretty much anything. For couples, it's for children, for individuals, just kind of the ways you view it. So, really, I think as far as what we're learning, we started with theories and really hammering those down. And then they kind of talk about how it translates. And then, of course, we have classes like trauma and like religion and stuff like that. So, gonna outsider things.
Got it. That's awesome. Okay, so my new T-shirt's going to be that just says the word imposter on it. I think that's the next Fight Club T-shirt because that's awesome. We can actually make a hat that just says imposter. So you get your imposter syndrome hat and put it on. Imposter. So I look, I'm an imposter. I'm okay. I'm
That's
good.
perfect.
I love it. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that I think so what does a typical week as a graduate student look like? I mean, I know this semester is a little different, but what is it like? I mean, I know what it was like when I was a grad student, but what is it like for you? You're one of them now.
Yeah. So right with my schooling, it's typically a 2.5 year track. I really wanted to be able to work while I was going to school. So I stretched it out to a 4-year track.
Got it.
So right now I'm only in one class, which is great for me. So I work like full time during the week, eight
What do you
to
do?
four. I work in a startup in accounting and finance.
Yeah, see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I work full time
Nerd.
during, I know, I don't know how it happened. I don't even like math.
It's because you can
Uh,
do stats. All you're doing in accounting and statistics is counting
I
and
can't even
counting
tell you
stats.
how often I use Excel. I am using Excel every day, and I had no idea how much I would need it after I first used it in your class.
Uh-huh. Okay, just telling you. Telling a bunch of the people. You telling me you
Yes,
hate stats. Okay, sorry.
yes. Um, so yeah, I'm working full time. Tuesdays, I have class 7:30 to 10. So
Oof.
I know I'm driving to Mission Valley and doing that, but we are, I'm reading. I really am listening to my books that I downloaded online through Speechify. I don't know if you've heard of the app, but you can download it as an extension to your phone or computer, and it will read you like a text. So basically, I have my textbooks on audiobooks, and throughout the week, I will be listening to that. It takes a long time because we're expected to be reading at least a few chapters in a couple of books every week. As yeah, exactly. This one is a lot because it's that psychological assessments class. So there's a lot of content to it. But in addition to that, same thing as kind of an undergrad, you're doing a lot of discussion posts. There's a lot of homework for this class specifically, not too much in other classes, because this clinical career is a lot of kind of in-person learning and talking through things, practicing your clinical skills with your clients, or even just doing role plays in class. So there hasn't been too much of like a course load unless you're in a class that might require like textbook learning like this one.
Right.
But I probably spend, I don't know, maybe 6 hours each week, kind of split up, just simply listening, reading my textbooks.
Oh,
It's definitely, like I said, they treat you like an adult. They expect you to be doing your work and kind of making sure you're just looking at the syllabus and moving through, doing everything the correct way, asking questions if you don't, and then just kind of moving through the classes. So that's typically what a normal week looks like for me.
so so a lot of graduate programs don't want you to have a job, and
That's very correct.
so for you, is the counseling degree different, or do you just kind of work on the sly and don't tell them that you're working full time?
So my school that I specifically go to is Azusa Pacific University. The main campus is actually up in Azusa, and I go to the offshoot campus in Mission Valley. It
Is that
lacks
the one up
one.
behind the Ralphs, right by the 163?
No, it's right off Mission Center Road. If you know where the Chick-fil-A is, it's the building right next to the
Okay,
Chick-fil-A. Yes,
that's dangerous. Okay.
I know, I know. Um, so my school actually lacks a certain accreditation because we offer night classes. Most other schools around have that certain accreditation, and with that accreditation, you can't offer night classes. It's just, I don't know what the certain restriction is, but like for state, they don't want you to work. They want it to be
Yeah.
that 2-year
Full-time
track.
job. Yeah.
Absolutely no full-time job. So the reason why I applied to Azusa was in part for that. It was a big reason because I needed to be working, even if I was only working a little bit, which originally the job I'm at was only supposed to be a part-time job. And then,
That's
yeah,
when you're good at
exactly.
stuff, people hire you to do more.
Yeah,
See, that's your part. That's your
exactly.
fault.
Yeah,
Start
yeah,
embezzling, you'll get fired, and they'll be fine. You'll be good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So most everyone, the first bit of school before they have been assigned to a practicum site is working.
Right.
And then during their practicum, because most people are doing that 2-year track and they have to get those hours and be taking 5 classes a semester, they are not working.
Right.
That is why I decided to do that 4-year track. So I could end up having basically between like 1 and 2 classes a semester and work. Eventually, as I go into my practicum, I will only have 1 class that is just basically supervision with
Right.
my directors, just talking and going through what I've learned, what have happened with my clients. So trying to take the least stressful route possible, even if it takes me another couple of years, is the best decision.
So when you start, because when you start doing your practicum, you have to do that during the day. Is your job going to be flexible and allow you to work in the afternoons or in evenings, or have you not had the
Uh,
discussion yet?
I have. It's a
Okay.
mix of both. I specifically was applying to practicum sites that offered like later in the day
Okay.
um, shifts. There were a couple of the private practices that were open until like 9 o'clock at night. And usually,
Working
so you have
families, that's when you're going to
exactly,
get.
if people who might not be able to afford therapy at all or even under their insurance, they work a full-time job, they're taking care of their kids, the only time they might be able to get into the office would be at 7 or 8 o'clock. So I
Right.
specifically looked for places that had that availability for myself so I could continue working. Sharp has evening shifts, I think usually between like 3 to 7. You're expected to work like 20 hours a week there. Sharp is a little bit higher. Most places are a little bit lower than that because you have to end up getting 300 hours in total.
Right.
So it is a lot, but I did talk to my job. I am only one of 2 people on my team. So it was pretty easy to say, like, I'm going to cut back a little bit if that's okay. Like, if it's not, sayonara in August.
Yeah.
But I have a really great workplace that decided to work with me. I think if I had still been working at Target, which I had been pretty much all of undergrad, it would have been easier doing something like that, much easier. At the same time, if I had gone to like state or something where I could just work those minimal hours, weird times of the day, and then quit if I needed to. But at
Right.
this point, that just wasn't going to work for me. So very strategic and very thankful for the place that I work at. But most people do quit their job to do their practicum.
Yeah, my neighbor who talked to us last week was applying to the MFT program at state. He just got in. Yeah, and so yeah, he got his master's in 2008 and has been working full time doing organizational managerial IO stuff. And he's like, he's finally following his passion and getting his MFT. He's like in his 40s. So he's like, I'm not going to be done till I'm dead, but that's okay. Cause it's like, okay. So the last thing is, so you anticipate finishing 2 years?
One year,
One more
2025.
year. And but then after you finish though, you're not licensed. You still have to do that's 1,000 hours or 1,500.
2000.
2,000, 2,000. So 2,000 hours. So if you're working full time, so because you can't, can you get paid and work your hours?
Yes.
Okay.
So once I graduate, and that would be if I'm passing my exams. So we
You
have like
are.
the law and ethics and then the theories and getting licensed. Um, you would be an associate if you
Okay.
were hired at like any sort of practice. You would be an associate MFT,
Okay.
and they are paid positions. Usually, the pay is pretty good. Normally, I think it usually starts around 35 an hour.
Okay.
You do have to build your clientele, so you might not have very many hours when you start. If you started maybe somewhere that was like a county program, you would have that caseload pretty much given to you. So it might be a little bit faster to get all of your hours under somewhere that has that caseload available for you versus working private practice, building it up, doing something where you specifically are like kind of at your niche instead of, again, like doing a county position. But yes, so paid Usually a couple of years, like 2 to 3 is when people are actually getting that full licensure.
Wow. It's like you really got it. But the cool thing is you look forward to going to class. You look forward to see that's the motto of this whole thing is that you really do become immersed in what you're doing, and it really becomes it's like that's what I keep trying to tell these folks, not necessarily, but my intro class is that we just skip along the surface of stuff. We're going to tell you that this is this, but then when you get to graduate school, you do a deep dive. And the PhD, and this is what Susan said, is you choose a specific topic and you drill all the way down to the basic primary research of that specific topic. And that's what the PhD is. And so you're focusing down on a field, not just a
Mhm.
specific thing, which that's really
Yes.
cool. That's a good way of perspectiving it. All right. My wife texted me that the next game is they're warming up for the next game. Oh, and Anna just emailed me. Oh, cool. Anna, so Anna, who's going to be talking to us, has also finished her degree at State. Couldn't get into master's program because they said, well, you don't work in a lab, so we're not letting you in.
Oh,
So Anna became an RBT, and then
mhm.
she became, and now she's in the BCBA program or MBCBA program at Arizona State. So she's going to become applied behavior analyst and she's going that route, and she really loves it. So the behavioral psych course we have back on campus. And we have our dog Ted, who is our golden doodle, and he is part of the training program. He's becoming a licensed therapy dog. So the behavioral psych course now has an applied component, and students get an RBT at the end if they want to. They can pass sit for the
Wow.
RBT test after the behavioral psych course. So we've shifted it from theory to application.
That's really cool.
If you jump on my YouTube channel, you can see Ted was afraid of the big coyote mascot that we have on campus, and he would bark at it and growl at it. And so in the midterm in class, they came up with a procedure to get Ted not to eat the mascot.
Wow.
And the mascot now is one of my students. And she
Oh,
didn't
that's
tell me she was the
funny.
mascot until like halfway through the class, and I figured it out. I'm like, you're the mascot. I know it. Anyway, never a
That's
dull moment.
amazing.
Never a dull moment at Queen Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I am so happy you're doing well and so happy because you guys were so stressed. And then I remember getting into the program, you guys were all running in circles, not knowing what to do for your masters.
Yep.
And so that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are doing well. And I want to bug Rima about the forensics because I have a forensic psychologist who actually she's a clinical psychologist, but then she started working for the PERT team.
Oh,
So she
very cool.
yeah, well, terrifying, but cool.
Yeah.
But and so she does the forensic psych stuff, but on the road, not and in the hospital. So it's very dangerous and cool. So Rima would love that.
Yeah. I'm sure
Okay.
she probably would.
Okay, so I have to say goodbye. So thank you so much. It was awesome to talk to you, and it's awesome to see you again. Hope you can drop by Quimaka. Just say hi. I'm there every day. So all right.
For sure. Cool. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.